Hello, everybody, and happy Publication Day. My name is Steve. I'm here with author Mike Thorn. Mike, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I was just telling you before we went live, I don't know anybody in New Brunswick yet, really. I mean, I've met some people in my program, but we're not close yet. And the pandemic is happening. So this is my celebration right here with you,
Oh,
Steve.
wow.
So thank you.
Yeah, well, I was gonna bring it up because you could be anywhere and you're here talking with me, who's who am I? So it's awesome that you that were able to make this work because it's I feel very it's I'm very excited to have you on today as your book has been released. It's great.
No, I'm happy to be here. And last time we had a chat, it was a really good conversation, and I like the stuff you're doing on your channel. So
Oh,
I'm
cool.
hyped, man. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, so today is a special day because your book, Peel Back and See, is a
Mm.
publication day, and we have some people joining us today. Derry is here.
Hi, Terry.
Our friend Saf,
Hi, Saf.
of course, Ashley's here
Hey,
as
Ashley.
well, and my wife Brandy's in the other room watching,
Nice to meet you, Brandy.
and Derry is here. Congratulations!
Thank you,
Oh,
Terry.
and Farrah Rose Smith is here. Hi,
Oh, hey,
Farrah. How's it going?
Farah.
Yeah.
Farah's awesome. She's
Oh, she's great.
so talented, such a cool person. Thanks for
Yeah.
tuning in, Farah.
Yeah, definitely. Happy book birthday,
Thank you.
and
Appreciate it.
Book Blather is here. Hey, how are you and Olive doing? Yeah, I really loved Of One Pure Will. That is a great collection of short stories. So if you haven't read that, go check that out by Farrah Rose Smith. It's a
Seconded.
great,
Yeah.
great book. Yeah.
Such a unique voice. Like, yeah, nobody else writing like her in the genre world right now. So
Yeah. It's very, very unique. Very it's a different kind of experience.
yes,
For
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah. Like immersive, hallucinatory,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Hallucinatory is a great way to describe it.
Yeah, that's my kind of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And so your book, Peel Back and See, the last time we talked, you had mentioned you were still working on the book and you had mentioned that it was some of the darker stories you've ever written. So how do you feel now that the book is released and you're hearing feedback? How was that experience been?
It's nerve-wracking. I mean, it's always nerve-wracking putting a book out there. But this one feels especially uh, I feel especially nervous this time around because the book is so personal, and because it's also so recent. Like two of the stories in this book, Havoc and Fade to White, which are the first and last stories in the collection, I wrote within the past few months.
Hmm.
So a lot of this is just it's really fresh, it's really raw. I've talked a lot about this, but 2018 to 2021, the years in which I wrote the majority of this collection, were the most personally taxing years of my life. And Peel Back and See, in many ways, just sees me like hanging on to writing basically as a life raft. So it's like, it's really raw. Yeah. And so putting it out there, it is nerve wracking, but people so far have been courteous and merciful with their responses. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, there were a couple of the stories. I forget the second story especially. I forget the name of it, but it got me at the end. It was like a wow, like the conclusion. Minnie McDonough Manor. Yeah, that was a love that story.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it stood out to me because yeah, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but it reminded me of a few different things. So, and we were talking before we went live about how different it is now to release a book during the pandemic, and there's not really gatherings and ways to celebrate. So, how has that whole experience been? Has it been a big change for you?
Yeah, I mean, 2021 has been a very bizarre year because somehow I have ended up releasing 3 books this year, which is amazing, but it's been nuts. And all 3 of them have been during, some variation of lockdown. Um, and now I'm living in Fredericton where I don't know anybody. So it feels especially free floating this time. I shouldn't say I don't know anybody. I've met some people in my PhD program and they seem lovely and great, but like nobody I can be like, hey, let's go celebrate with a drink, and I could at least do that for Shelter for the Damned and Darkest Hours. So yeah, like I said, I took the day off grading. That was kind of my celebration. So it's better than nothing. Can't complain.
Exactly. And Jeremy Fees here, he says, "Hi guys, 3 books in a year is phenomenal." Yes, that's quite a lot of work in one year.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really, like I said, unexpected. Shelter for the Damned came out in early 2021, and then my agent suggested I float the idea to Journal Stone of re-releasing Darkest Hours as a deluxe reissue through Journal Stone, and I had another manuscript worth of short stories that became Peel Back and See. And Journal Stone said, "Yeah, like we'll publish them all this year." And I was like, "Whoa, I wasn't expecting that, but I'll take it." So yeah. Now I guess I have to hurry up and write the next one.
Yeah, he said
That's it. Yeah, so that's it. That's all I've got for now. Yeah.
And Fit to Be Read is here. Hey, Fit to Be Read.
Hey, thanks for tuning in.
And I'm wondering, I was reading this collection, and we had mentioned that they've been so close together. How do you decide which stories go into which collection? Do you have a certain theme that you follow, or do you want the stories to flow in a certain way? I kind of see it as like an album with music to try and get. Is that kind of the way it works?
It's very much like that. Although Darkest Hours had originally been released in 2017. So that collection was basically written between 2015 and 2017, which were the years in which I completed my master's degree. So Darkest Hours, I think, was largely about academic anxieties, academic evils. There was some satire of academic, I guess, culture in many ways. And then it was also just my way of escaping from all of that stuff. So it was steeped in my love of classic horror and heavy metal. So that to me is like a time capsule of a specific moment in my life. Peel Back and See, all the stories, maybe one or two exceptions, were written after Darkest Hours. So that they really do capture just different periods in my life. So Peel Back and See is post Masters Mike, I guess. Yeah. So and I guess it's a lot darker. So who knows? Maybe PhD Mike will like, I don't know what to say, but we'll see where the darkness takes me next. Yeah.
And Josh is here. He says, "Fredericton, greetings from Southern Ontario."
Oh, hey, Josh. I was actually living in Ontario for a period last year with an ex. I was there for 5 months, I think, in Toronto, but it wasn't like Toronto because it was the pandemic, and she lived in like the beaches area. So yeah, but there's some beautiful areas in Ontario.
Darius says, "I'm from NZ, so it's Saturday here, and I'm drinking beer in the sun. Cheers for being published."
Cheers to that, Derry. I will raise my water.
Yeah. Darkest Hours was also about a guy who eats hair.
Yes, there is. The first story in Darkest Hours is indeed about a man named Theodore who develops an unhealthy fixation on the consumption of eating human hair. Actually, I guess all hair. He doesn't discriminate. So yeah, that was the first story in Darkest Hours. Yeah,
that's a great one too.
Thank you.
And I'm not smart enough to know how you do it, but I wonder if there's a certain technique that you use, because I've noticed in all of your short stories that the characters are very, they feel like real people in a short amount of time. I was wondering, are there techniques that you use to get the reader to identify with the characters and to understand them? Because it seemed, I always get the feeling like even with a 10-page story, I have a really clear view of who the characters are and a vivid picture in my mind.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I guess I just try to be true to my characters. I think I have to know them in some sense. None of my characters are direct representations of anyone I've met in the real world or anything like that. But usually there's some fragment of me or someone I've met in my characters. So I feel like they have to feel authentic to me in order to write them that way. But yeah, it's about what details you deploy. So in short fiction, you are dealing with fewer words, fewer pages. So you do have to be attentive to what is being conveyed through dialogue, whether through the content of speech or the way someone speaks. Ditto for character actions. Every character action in a short story carries an implication. So I'm usually more attentive to kind of finessing those things in later drafts. First drafts, usually I'm just trying to move through the mechanics. And then I have some trusted readers I'll usually send my drafts to, who are very attentive. And I do pay mind to that. How can I make this feel as authentic and as real as possible? I feel like that's my job as a writer. So, but I'm glad to hear it works for you. I appreciate that.
And Pharaoh Smith says, "I've never forgotten that hair story."
Well, thank you, Farah, and sorry, maybe a little bit. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a tough one to forget. You don't forget that story. And yeah. And how has your education changed your writing style as you've been progressing through your career?
I'm not sure. I mean, Shelter for the Damned was originally written in my early 20s. And I think that novel has a more kind of raw quality in some ways. There's a lot of anger in that book. There's a kind of, I don't know how else to put it. It feels different somehow. Darkest Hours, I think, is probably informed to some degree by some of the philosophy and theory I was reading while writing it. Although I never set out to write message stories. I never set out to, convey a specific theoretical or philosophical idea through my fiction. But inevitably, when I'm, in these environments and having these conversations and taking these classes and teaching, these ideas are, bouncing around in my head. So I do think they find their way onto the page. Certainly in Peel Back and See, I can see traces of Schopenhauer in particular, and Bataille and some other philosophers I was reading, but it's not like I was thinking, I'm going to write my Schopenhauer story right now. It just kind of, it resonated with me. His ideas resonated with me, and I wanted to explore them, I guess, through fiction.
Are there any writers that you will go back and read their books to kind of get the creative juices flowing, or movies or music that you listen to that kind of get your mind in the right place?
I don't tend to reread a lot. I think the main thing for me is that I read constantly, and that I read adventurously, and that I read with a kind of sense of openness and curiosity. So I try to read, of course, as widely within the genre of horror and dark fiction more broadly, but I also try to read poetry. I try to read non-genre fiction, philosophy, biography, just anything I can get my hands on. So I think that keeps me writing. I think reading is part of writing. When I actually sit down to write, I will sometimes listen to music, not always. These days, I tend to prefer really spare minimalist music. So either like ambient music like Brian Eno or Harold Budd, or like really minimalist classical music like Debussy or Satie, stuff like that. And movies, I mean, same thing as with fiction. I just try to watch adventurously and educate myself on the history of my genre, but also, venture outside of that. So yeah, I think just being open, as I think that's key as a writer, being like, I guess it's a cliche, but writers often talk about the necessity of being like a sponge, being attentive, soaking things up in both the real world, whatever that means now, and I don't know what the hell that means. And actually, I do think Peel Back and See, a lot of the stories are informed by the fact that I wasn't really functioning within the real world, so to speak. A lot of these stories are about people who are being kind of dissolved and kind of absorbed into screens and surfaces in a way. So I think that probably informed the book too.
And I noticed that I think you're really smart with how you roll out, how you release your book, how you appeal to certain readers that you know, that you're familiar with, and will kind of get the word out about the book, and it's coming out, it's going to be released, and they release reviews. I think that's really smart because now with social media and promoting a book, it must be really difficult to always have a presence. Because I was talking with Catherine McCarthy the other day, and she mentioned that if she takes a break from social media, she'll see a drop in sales if she's not, doesn't have a presence. So,
Mhm.
what is that like for you with the book release coming up? Do you feel like some kind of pressure to remain have a presence online or on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. It's vital. I mean, it's I often describe social media as a necessary evil, and I place equal emphasis on necessary and evil. I do think there are a lot of things about social media that are quite terrifying, especially the way it's affecting us on like a social psychological scale. I think I find deeply disturbing, but at the same time, this is the world we live in, and I happen to be a fiction writer, for better or worse, and I want people to read my work, so I use the platforms, and I've also met a lot of really cool, supportive, engaged people, present company included. Um, so that's nice. Yeah, and it's really nice to be able to like talk with readers and with other just genre freaks as well, and other fans of literature more broadly. So I don't know. It is a necessary evil for sure. I don't think there's any way one could deny that. I don't even know like how I would get my work out there if not for social media. I have no clue. I wouldn't even know where to start. Um, I mean, yeah, like I don't have a publicist. I don't have a marketing team. I have an agent. I have a good publisher, but there's only so much they can do as well. So yeah.
Yeah. And Jeremy says, I feel like Mike Thorn does an amazing job with social media, giving lots of interviews online and tweeting out when they are happening.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I try. I do. I treat it like a part-time job in a sense.
Mhm.
Like I care deeply about about writing and about this part of my life. So I devote a lot of time and energy to it. And I never say no to anything really. I don't think I've ever said no to an interview or review. I actually can't think of a single case. So that's part of it is, say yes.
Yeah.
It's nice that people ask to do these things. So
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you lucky for me, right?
no, I mean, it's a pleasure for me too. It's fun. It's like, why wouldn't I want to like talk with people about the work? It's nice that people want to do that. It's a privilege. So
Mm. And Book Blather says that was definitely on display and peel it back and see. Yeah.
the fear of social media, I'm assuming he means. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a big part of that book. And I think that could be another thing that really expressly sets Peel Back and See apart from Darkest Hours. Darkest Hours does have its contemporary stories, but I think it's really kind of entrenched in 1970s and 1980s horror cinema and fiction in a lot of ways. Peel Back and See, I think I kind of pull away from that a little bit. Not for any like reason that I don't still love that stuff, but I just wanted to write more directly about like my pain, contemporary experiences, contemporary realities. So yeah, I'm writing. There's a Twitter story in here. There's a story about a kind of occult torrent file. Havoc is about a live feed that might have implications of cosmic horror. So yeah, I just tried to, I guess, lean into that stuff.
Definitely. And Josh says, Mike, you mentioned you've had a really hard few years. I'm sorry to hear that. How have you managed to keep writing? My own hard times of the past couple of years have killed my creative drive. That's a great question.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Yeah, it's fucking hard. It's not. I think there's often this kind of romantic myth of the tortured artist or whatever, when in reality, if you deal with a condition like severe chronic depression, like I do, or anxiety, or when you have repressed and immediate trauma clawing at your door simultaneously, which I did, you are almost debilitated in many cases. Like I couldn't move. I had, weeks where I couldn't get out of bed. And when you're dealing with that level of suffering, and I don't want to like make myself out to be a victim. I'm just trying to be matter of fact about it. It is fucking hard to write. Part of what I did in Peel Back and See is I just tried to, I guess, find my way through the paradox of writing through a condition that made me not want to write. And the result is stories like Havoc, like Fade to White, like Deprimer, like The Voiding. So I don't know how readers will feel about those stories, but I had to get this out in some way or express this in some way. And I think that's okay to lean into your feelings and write your way through them, and maybe taking the pressure off yourself too. So instead of thinking, oh, this has to be publishable or this has to have whatever, a 3-act structure or something, just try to shut all of that noise out, and just write your way through the feelings. Maybe something will come of it, maybe not. And either way, that's fine, I think. Yeah. And I think there's also this, sometimes out of good intentions, the negative consequence of people saying like there's no such thing as writer's block, writers write, these kinds of narratives that people like to shout about on social media, I think can actually have unforeseen side effects for people going through this stuff. Because it's like, well, it's all well and good if that's the case for you, but for some people they have material conditions that prevent them from doing so at times. So just be gentle on yourself, be kind to yourself. If you're going through a period where it's just not coming, that's okay. That's fine. Like why does it need to happen right now? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but that's the best I can offer.
It's amazing how difficult being kind to yourself can be.
Fuck yeah.
It's a different type of feeling, and it's something you have to consciously think about and not just let it come on its own. But it is harder than it sounds sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. One of the hardest things to do.
Because it sounds simple, but putting it into practice and being conscious of it is a whole nother challenge.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And often there's a dissonance between a kind of intellectual understanding of an issue and then like the emotional experience of it. Those things can be totally misaligned. So you can rationally observe, okay, here's why these thoughts are irrational, but then the irrational thoughts are so persuasive and so loud that you kind of give into them anyway. So human brain, fun stuff, the mind, gotta love it. Yeah.
Do you find when you write through these feelings and these thoughts, do you feel like it's therapeutic for you to, when you finish a story and you look back, and does it help you kind of get through those negative kind of feelings?
Sometimes, yeah. I think all of my fiction to some degree is kind of therapeutic. So maybe in that sense, it's self-serving. But yeah, I need to express these feelings through fiction. Otherwise, they would just fester. So for me, definitely it is a form of therapy. Writing fiction in general is a form of therapy.
Mm-hmm. And Lauren Lullabies is here. And
hey.
her friend Caleb is here. I'm here.
Thank you.
And Stacy's all booked is here. Hey, Stacy.
So Caleb said he's here to stan me. I hope that's not literal, like a reenactment of the Eminem song "Stan," which is kind of like a misery situation. But thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was a mistype or if that was a reference to that song.
I love it.
Yeah. Dave says, I love them all, but Deprimer was actually one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Yeah, Deprimer, it's weird. That story it is probably the most direct example of that, of just writing through the experience of depression. So there's this weird, I guess, metacognitive quality in the story where there's like a secret, there's a kind of service available where you can have depression excised from your body as this entity, I guess. And I think I was sort of on some level wishing that that was possible and thinking through that conceptually. What would that be like if depression and anxiety and all of these issues had a physical manifestation? You know, what might it look like? Could we even see it? Could we describe it? So I'm glad to hear that work. Thank you so much.
And Saf says, I think that's where Stan originates.
It's a good song. Very good song.
Darius says, I haven't been able to work for several years for those reasons. And so when I say that I am so freaking proud of you, no, I understand what I mean.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, like I said, Derry, just try to be easy on yourself. If the work is not coming, that's okay. It's not. Yeah, I think sometimes we put these pressures on ourselves, and sometimes that can be counterproductive too. Sometimes maybe what you need is like just to take a walk, maybe unplug. I don't know, watch an Adam Sandler movie, whatever. Sometimes that's what you need, and that's okay.
Something lighthearted.
Yes.
Do you plan breaks from, or just a time that you unplug and get away from everything? Is that something that you try and do on a regular basis?
I am very bad at that. Probably to a detriment. And I burn out. Like I've gotten sick in the past because I don't do that. So I don't know. I should probably figure that out. Maybe I'll talk to my therapist about that. Scheduling in breaks. Yeah, I don't stop working on weekends either. Like, I don't know. I probably should. Something to think about. Yeah.
Exactly. And our friend Ariel is here. Hello, Ariel. Reading
Hey, Ariel.
Yeah, I was curious about with social media. It seems like, especially with being an author, to always have that presence must be could be exhausting for someone, especially with the book that's released, or you want to get the word out. It must be really have that constant pressure to feel like you need to have a presence.
Yeah, it can be. And 2021 has just been nuts because it was the 3 books back to back. I also moved across the country for the first time ever to a province where I don't know anybody. And I started my PhD in September. So it has been truly berserk. Like it's all kind of a blur. But again, I really do feel grateful that anybody wants to talk about my work with me or review my work. Like that is a very good problem to have. I'm not about to complain about that. So, but it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I can see how that would be exhausting at times. Ariel says, yeah, I also work too much.
My condolences. We should both, unplug every now and then.
Yeah. And Caleb says, I have noticed that the monsters and horrors in your stories are very brief and abstract. I love it, and would like to know what other authors inspire you to write horror like that.
Oh, thank you, Caleb. I appreciate that. I often think about this kind of double-edged sword that all horror writers have to engage with, which is if you withhold too much, then readers are likely to accuse you of bluffing. You don't actually have anything that terrifying to show us. And then if you describe or show too much, then you can run the risk of deflating the tension, so to speak. So that's something I'm always trying to resolve. Sometimes I will just go, full out and just kind of lean into the absurdity of fictional monstrosity or whatever. But yeah, I do tend to kind of try to abstract and ambiguate as much as possible in as many areas of my fiction as I can. In terms of inspirations on that front, I mean, I guess I think of people like Kathy Koja, Thomas Ligotti, H.P. Lovecraft, even Edgar Allan Poe, I think often the horror is located in the psyche of the character, more so than the kind of object of horror. So it's the subjective experience of horror more foregrounded than the object of horror, I guess. Yeah, those are some people who come to mind. Robert Eichmann, Algernon Blackwood, William Hope Hodgson, even some of Peter Straub's stuff to some degree. There are lots of other horror writers I love who don't work in that mode, but yeah, Shirley Jackson, I guess. Yeah, lots of different people.
So many great books out there. It's hard to keep up.
I know. Yeah, and anytime people ask those questions, I kind of blank. But
yeah. Lauren, hey Lauren, he says, "What is your area of study for your PhD you are working on if they're in Fredericton?"
Hey Lauren, thank you. Yeah, I'm doing my PhD in creative writing. And I've kind of joked that ironically, the first semester of my creative writing PhD has been so busy that I haven't had time to do any creative writing. But that's not entirely true. I'm taking a screenwriting course and we're developing feature outlines and treatments. And then we'll be writing like the first act of our screenplays. And I'm taking a prose fiction course. I submitted to prematurely because I wanted to be like step up. The instructor was like, come on, someone volunteer. And I idiotically said, I'll do it. And then I submitted like the first scene of a story that was not at all ready to share. So I learned from that experience. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing, creative writing PhD.
If you're writing screenplays, how was that taking you out of your comfort zone to go from writing short stories and novels to writing a screenplay? Was that a big change in your process?
It is and it isn't. I actually started with more of an interest in film in a way. Like for a while, I actually wanted to go into acting, and I also considered writing and directing. I remember when I was a young teenager, I went to like Q&A sessions about Vancouver Film School. So that's always kind of been a big part of my identity, I guess. And I've always read a lot of screenplays. And interestingly, in my undergrad degree, my mentor, Randy Nickel Schroeder, had me reading mostly screenwriting theory to understand narrative. Most of the principles are kind of applicable across both mediums. So yeah, I mean, there are differences for sure. Like I worked on a treatment of Shelter for the Damned with Jamie Blanks. That novel is very interior. Film, you have to show things. So thinking through how do you visualize that interiority, that was definitely like a tricky endeavor. But yeah, it was an interesting one.
And Caleb says, I was going to say some of the situations in your stories really reminded me of the hospice.
Thank you. Although I'm blanking on who wrote the hospice. My brain is porridge. I'm sorry. Oh, Eichmann. Yes, right. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Eichmann's amazing.
And you mentioned the screenplay for Shelter for the Damned. How is that going? Is there any updates on that?
The treatment is done. We're just like looking around for homes for it. I haven't written the screenplay, but the treatment is basically a very detailed blueprint of what the shape of the film would be, the key plot points, the key images, even some dialogue. But yeah, I haven't written the script yet. And right now I'm working on a treatment of Havoc, the first story in Peel Back and See. That's another one Jamie and I have been batting ideas back and forth with. So yeah, those are the big ones.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Kayla's here. She just released the review for your book at midnight. She's on top of it. She had it on publication day. We were watching last night at midnight when her video released. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks so much. Kayla's the best. Thank you, Kayla.
Really great channel. Ariel says, my brain porridge. I'm going to start saying that.
It's a go-to phrase for me. When in doubt. Yeah.
My brain porridge. And when reading, especially Darkest Hours and Peel Back and See too, but with Darkest Hours, they all felt like they could fit into a like a Outer Limits or like a serialized hour, like was it Darkest or Black Mirror type of series. Has that ever been something you've wanted to do? Is adapt it into like hour-long episodes, all the different stories you've written, or a select?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, my phone line and email are open if anyone wants wants me to do something. But yeah, I love that stuff. I mean, the Twilight Zone is a big
Mhm.
influence. Um, I, like many other kids of my generation, grew up with Goosebumps, which is basically like children's Twilight Zone. So yeah, I love that stuff.
They'd be perfect for that because I think because they're so I mentioned earlier, but there's really vivid um, characters and environments and everything. So it
Thank you.
seems like it would be a perfect way to adapt. And Caleb says Brain Porridge is going to be the new Mike Thorn story.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
So your next book is going to be Brain Porridge.
All right, there's a demand for this. I've got to come
Yeah.
up with something.
Yeah. Let us know who we need to contact to get someone to adapt your stories into a serialized show.
Okay.
That'd be great. Yeah. Let us know who we can harass. We'll get it going.
Mr. Shutter, Mr. Netflix. I don't know.
Yeah. I think what's the was it the movie production company that does all the horror movies? I'm trying to Blumhouse.
Yeah,
It'll be
yeah.
Blumhouse.
Well,
Yeah.
they're doing cool stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did have on my list of questions to ask you because actually have a bone to pick with you
Okay.
because I saw a list on Twitter that you had for Kanye West albums,
hmm
and College Dropout wasn't number one.
Yeah. I'm one of those weirdos who likes like some of the late career Kanye. College Dropout is great though.
Yeah.
Great album. I actually like pretty much all of Kanye's stuff. He kind of lost me a little bit after Yeezus, but there's always something cool on all of his releases, I find. So
Yeah.
I'm glad he's there. I'm glad that we have an artist like Kanye who is so um, unpredictable and out there and just adventurous. I think it's important that we have artists like that, even if he can sometimes say and do maddening things. But Yeezus was just like one of the most sonically out there records I had heard in ages. I still like that album a lot. But yes, I no disrespect to College Dropout. It's classic for sure.
Yeah. I wanted to give you a hard time about that one. But no, I think was it 808 was your number one? Yeah.
I think it was Yeezus and then 808s. Those are my two favorites. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
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 You can't really go wrong with any of those, but
Yeah.
I do agree that we need someone like Kanye, even if he is crazy sometimes and does these wild things and just says just crazy stuff. It's good he's there.
Absolutely. I'm very
Yeah.
glad he's there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely one of a kind. And even when he first, he still had that I don't want to say arrogance, but that confidence. Even when in 2004, 2005, when College Dropout was released, he still had it. You can tell he had something. There was something special about him.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. He's always been his own man.
That's for sure. Yeah, he's one
Yeah.
of a kind.
Yeah.
And so curious because one of my favorite questions recently has been, what was your first job?
My first job, well, aside from like babysitting, because I did babysitting, um, God, I worked as a dishwasher at like a pizza place. It was a short-lived. I think it was short-lived. I don't think it's around anymore. It was called Take and Bake. Nick and Willie's Take and Bake Pizza. So they would sell basically frozen pizzas, and then that was it. Like they didn't bake the pizzas in house. That was the whole thing, which doesn't. I don't know. It's an odd business model to me. But yeah, I very poorly and inefficiently washed dishes in the back, and basically just like flirted with the girls who worked there. And I think I might have even been let go from that job. And then I also worked as a gopher on a construction site. I was also useless at. I think one of the recurring tropes in my life is that I'm kind of useless at most things. That could be another part of the reason why I write fiction. But yeah, I worked as a gopher on a construction site. I don't know why or how I got that position. I had to be driven to work by like other people on the crew. Absolutely useless. So those were two of my earliest. And then I worked at HMV back when it existed in Canada. I worked at Blockbuster Video. I worked at Chapters, which is a Canadian bookstore chain. So all kinds of jobs.
I think that I forget the name of there's one that does the frozen pizzas. You kind of order a pizza, but they give it to you cold or frozen, and then you go home. I'd never understood that either. Why am I going to pay for a pizza and go home and have to bake? I don't get it.
Like you can get them at the grocery store, I guess, but like having an entire establishment devoted, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but it always struck me as kind of weird. So
yeah, it is really strange. Like, yeah, I could just go buy a pizza a few businesses down, and it's ready to
cooked.
Eat. Yeah,
yeah.
So
same price, but it's cooked. Yeah.
That's really strange. Caleb says my first job was also dishwashing. You being a horror author, it makes a lot of sense now.
Because you find some gross things in the dishwater. No, I think working service jobs, you get a fair bit of a good material for horror too. You see some very ugly human behavior sometimes, working retail and service jobs. But yeah, I actually liked a lot of those jobs, especially Blockbuster. That was the best. I got 10 free rentals a week, and I was a weird teenager. So like that was all I did was watch movies. So I would actually watch my 10 rentals a week, and I just like cleaned out the store. So that was a cool job.
Oh, Papa Murphy's is the name of the business. Yeah, that does the frozen pizzas. Yeah, really strange.
And it's still going?
Yeah, it's through the pandemic and everything. They're still kicking. So it's smart. I guess it's a smart business model because you just need one or two people to put the pizza together, and a fridge and ingredients. You don't have to cook them. So
one or two knuckleheads like 13-year-old Mike, I guess, like probably not paying attention to what they're doing.
Not many dishes to wash.
Not many dishes. Yeah, exactly. I don't even know what I was washing, but there we have it.
And Dave says, so while I felt there were some broad common themes throughout Peel Back and See, one thing I was curious about was that Havoc and Virus seem to have a very specific thematic commonality. Without spoiling, was there a particular motivation for that kind of story? Unless I'm imagining it pandemic inspired.
Yeah, good question. Havoc is absolutely pandemic inspired. Like I said, I wrote Havoc and Fade to White within the past few months. So those were pretty close to the finish line in terms of getting them into the book. But I knew the book needed them in a way because I felt like DePrimer was kind of at the core of some of the things I wanted to say and explore with this book. And to me, Havoc and Fade to White just worked so well as bookends. So Havoc for sure. I didn't want to write a COVID story, but I wrote that story while in lockdown. And I just, tried to very frankly kind of address the conditions within which the protagonist was living. So, he's doing virtual therapy. There are references to the fact that there's a pandemic. I tried not to be too like on the nose with references to masks or like stupid shit Donald Trump was saying or whatever. You don't want to like rely too heavily on that stuff, but certainly I wanted to invoke the contemporary context. Virus, I wrote a few years ago. So that one, I can't say was pandemic inspired, but it was drawing on some of my fears around technology generally. I wouldn't say I'm like a technophobe, but I think there are things about like what the internet harbors and what the potential it has to reframe human society. That's really scary to me. Virus was originally released on the No Sleep podcast, and they asked me to rewrite the story in first person because it works better in audio format. But to me, it was always like a limited third person narrative. So I rewrote it that way again for the book. yeah, and it's, I drew on stories I remember from high school and junior high. So it's yeah, kind of an adolescent horror story in a lot of ways too.
With the pandemic being such a big part of everyone's life, you can't get away from it no matter who you are. But I would imagine it'd be hard for it not to seep in somehow to your writing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there are several stories in the collection where that's very apparent. Havoc and Fade to White, especially, but also to some extent Offer to the Adversary. It's about an art scholar who becomes obsessed with this painting. But I think I was maybe like indirectly, again, writing about people being, kind of subsumed by screens, subsumed by surfaces, kind of a dissolution of self in a way. Even Vomitus Bacchanalius, maybe to some degree, is about that. So.
Mhm. And Ariel says, I'm a barber. I could give you some stuff. You could turn into super scary stories.
Well, maybe I could write a sequel to Hair set in a barbershop. It would be so much more convenient for him if I don't know if he'd be able to contain himself, though. I think it'd be a much shorter story. Plus, spoiler alert, but Theodore is sort of kind of really dead. So maybe a prequel. I don't know.
A prequel could work.
Yeah.
And Virus is one of Dave and Kayla's favorites.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And our friend Jay is here. Okay, I'm here. You can start. We've been waiting on you, Jay, and now we can finally start. It's about time. Caleb says, I feel like even if not inspired by the pandemic, the themes of isolation and desperation are more relatable than ever. So good release timing. That's a great point.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And it's interesting because like the conditions of depression and anxiety, especially that I've been dealing with for a long time, I don't know. I'm sure they were exacerbated in some way, certainly affected by the pandemic, but I also have a lot of social anxiety and I am very introverted. So in some ways, the lockdown seemed kind of ideal to me, which sounds like an awful thing to say, but part of me was like, oh, great. I don't have to come up with excuses as to why I can't attend social events. I can just stay inside with my movies and my books and my music. But yeah, no, the stories are definitely about isolation, a lot of them, and despair for sure. A lot of despair, even just the reality of the pandemic as a disease, as a deadly disease that has wreaked horrible havoc on so many people's lives. But also the way it has revealed, I think, a lot of unsavory characteristics about humankind. For me, the most scary thing about the pandemic has been seeing just a lot of the atrociously selfish behavior it's brought out in people. That's scary. And I am kind of a believer in, the idea that we live in the world we create. And the world we have created looks kind of scary right now. So I don't know what that says about us, but it's something I'm trying to work through in my fiction.
And Mr. Morningstar is here. Book Blather was just singing my praises today. I'm eager to read your work, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I got the email from Dave. Dave, was Dave the name of the book? Yeah. So I got the email from Dave today. And yeah, the video was incredibly generous and really moving. So thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Dave has a great channel. Let's see. I do the same though. I think they're talking about. I'm not sure. I lost track.
That's all right.
Yeah. You mentioned in your author notes that you wrote September while fighting depression. Did getting that story out help with your depression?
September.
Oh,
it might have
Deep Primer. Sorry.
Okay. So sorry. What was the question? One more time.
You mentioned the author notes that you wrote Deep Primer while fighting depression. Did that story help fight your depression? I think we talked a little bit about that earlier, but
yeah, I mean, it's a condition I live with, unfortunately. I think writing fiction helps on some abstract level, but really it's something I try to combat with diet, sleep, and exercise, leaning on resources, medication, meditation. I try a lot of different things. Writing is vital for me, and I think it helps keep me sane to the degree that I am sane, which is debatable. But yeah, so I think it was important for me to write that story, and it helped me. Maybe it helped kind of consolidate or clarify certain things in my brain that I maybe wouldn't have been able to without writing that story. So in that sense, yes, it was helpful, I'd say. I don't know if that answers, but
Ariel says the most scary thing about it for me is now knowing how many people would hide in a zombie bite.
yeah. That's an interesting comment, because like I've talked to a few people about this. What do we do with zombie narratives post pandemic, now that we've kind of like lived our version of a zombie narrative in our contemporary world? I think Romero was very prophetic and was kind of predicting a lot of this stuff. But now that we've kind of gone through it, I don't know, like what would a zombie? I just saw a film this year called The Sadness that I watched through Fantasia Fest, and it's like very transparently a pandemic movie, and it's kind of a zombie pandemic movie. And to me, it seemed to be trying to be really like outrageous, and somehow it felt kind of, I don't know, kind of flat to me. I was like, it's too real. I don't know. So just some thoughts on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be a little too soon for tongue-in-cheek pandemic material. I think we're
Yeah,
a little too close.
Exactly. I actually thought it should be a lot darker. And a lot of people are talking about how crazily violent it was. I was like, yeah, but it feels a little bit like almost Looney Tunes to me. And like it didn't really lean into just the fucking heaviness of what the pandemic has wrought. So I don't know. I can't imagine like good tongue-in-cheek pandemic horror certainly anytime soon, if ever. Yeah.
And who knows how long it'll, we're going to be in this mess. So could be a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. Who knows?
Juan is here, Plagued by Visions. What has struck me most about your work is that you study horror as much as write it. I've noticed Ligotti's, Thacker's, and I can't pronounce that name, philosophical
Kristeva, yeah.
Kristeva is perfect. Tentacles squirming into your stories.
Oh, thanks so much, Juan. Yeah, and Juan's channel is incredible. One of the like most astute thinkers of dark fiction, I think, like around. So thank you. Yeah, I think like I was saying earlier, I don't often consciously set out to write stories with a set of philosophical interests in mind, but I think undoubtedly that stuff does work its way into the fiction, because I write scholarship on horror. I do read a lot of philosophy, especially philosophy related to the horror genre. So I do think, it works its way in. Sometimes I pick up on those things in retrospect. Like I said, there's a lot of Schopenhauer in Peel Back and See, in particularly, and Bataille. But yeah, Ligotti, Thacker, Kristeva, all influences for sure. Kristeva was one of the primary sources for my honors thesis, my undergrad, and Ligotti and Thacker were major sources for my master's thesis. So yes, these are all people I'm definitely like reading closely and thinking about.
And Juan is his channel is incredible. And whenever I watch his videos, I just want to become a sponge and soak up as much information as I can from. It's
Brilliant.
Full of just great stuff. Just great, really great videos. Really thoughtful and insightful.
Yeah.
Sure. My question is, what was your favorite scholarly work on horror?
My favorite scholarly work on horror.
And he also follows it up. I know that's a big question, so feel free to name whatever comes to your head first.
Yeah, it is, and it's a good question. I'm gonna cheat a little bit because I'm just like neck deep in Schopenhauer right now, and weirdly finding a lot of comfort in Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer's not writing about horror, but I think there's a lot of horror in the observations he's making. So The World as Will and Representation, Volume 1 by Schopenhauer would be my pick, I think. And yeah, I'm going to go with that. But Powers of Horror by Kristeva is also up there. Yeah, I love the Horror of Philosophy trilogy by Thacker. I think that's really good stuff. Cioran's On the Heights of Despair. Again, not a horror text necessarily, but I think there's something to be taken from what Cioran is doing and applied to horror, thinking about horror. So I cheated, but what can you do? Arrest me. Arrest me.
They might hear you. He also says, I know it's a big question. Juan ate some bad licorice. I think Juan still has pumpkin seeds in his hair from that skit the other day from Pam. That was a great skit. Ariel says, I can't even read dystopian pandemic books anymore because of what we've been through.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I've read any dystopian fiction since the pandemic started. I can't remember. I feel like I don't read a ton of pandemic or dystopian fiction anyway. I mean, obviously, like everyone, I've read The Stand. But yeah, no, I that makes sense for sure.
Yeah, a little too fresh. And he says, you could maybe cry on a Friday night. Stop. And so when you release a book like you did today, or publication day, is there anything special you do? Do you have a tradition where you have a special kind of drink or a meal or anything like that? I know it's a little different this year because of your recent move, but in the past, were there anything that you would do on a regular basis when you released a book?
Usually I like to enjoy a good glass of whiskey, preferably Scotch. I'm actually out of whiskey right now. And I have I had a headache for most of the day. So I was like, well, I guess. So like I said, today I treated myself by saying, I'm not going to start grading this next stack of essays until tomorrow. So that's the main. And I went for a little walk. So that was nice. Just, yeah, took a walk. So that was good.
Get some fresh air. Our friend Jeff Lane is here. I reread The Stand at the beginning of the pandemic, and it actually helped because they're so extreme compared to COVID.
Interesting. I could see that.
Could be worse, I guess. And once I had a question for you, because I know that you're into art and movies and music and everything. So if someone were to ask you, what is art to you, how would you answer that question?
Art is a refraction or an abstraction that is entirely separate from the world, but is also entirely of the world. And we have to hold that contradiction in mind. So, yeah, I don't think it's either thing. I don't think art is entirely, entrenched in the material reality of our world. And it's also obviously not this completely transcendent thing that's divorced from our material reality. It's both. Yeah, I think the world makes art. I don't think art makes the world. That's a key point of belief that I have. I don't know if art shifts reality in any way. I think art helps us process and move through and think about reality. And I think that's the only task of the artist if we want to ascribe a task to the artist, which I think is a big question too. But yeah, is maybe just to observe. Yeah.
And I wonder how differently art, because we've talked a little bit about how polarized everything is now and how there's separate camps that you have to be in and everything's so much conflict. I don't wonder if art will be the same after all of this, because there's too black or white, and it's a little scary.
I think it already is. I think there are ways in which art is often read as if it is simply a machine for messages, as if it is that's all that art is and does. I find that idea appalling and deeply depressing. And I don't want to live in a world where that's all that art is, because the muck of reality is horrific enough without us having to chain art to that bullshit. And I also think we run into situations where depiction is read as endorsement, which seems, again, just bonkers to me. I don't even understand. I don't know if art could exist if we all believed that, because we wouldn't be able to depict conflict, because we wouldn't be able to depict anything unsavory. So I do think there are ways in which I think a lot of these problems are facilitated by social media and the way social media kind of corrodes critical thinking in many ways, and also encourages a kind of corrosion of artistic ambiguity. Like, no, you have to make it clear what you're saying. What is your message? What is your theme? And I've kind of reached a point where I say, fuck that, because I'm not interested in that kind of art. That might upset some people, but that's me. So, yeah.
And I wonder how much, and we talked a little bit before about promotion on social media and having a presence. And I wondered, and I talked to Joseph Sale about this earlier today, is I wonder how much of our attention spans with social media have because we need that constant presence to remind everyone I'm here.
Yeah.
This is my work. And I wonder how much of our attention spans have changed with social media and technology, because our attention spans are much shorter. And I don't think it's something that we've consciously done. I just think it's happened over the last 20 years or so.
Oh, undoubtedly. Yeah. I mean, I notice it with myself too. Like I actually took a long time to get a smartphone. I was so resistant to it. I took a long time to, I left Facebook for a very long time. I took forever to get Twitter. So when I was just like early 20s flip phone Mike with no social media presence, I was reading, 120 books a year, just devouring fiction. Because those were my phone, those were my smartphone. In quiet moments, I would pick up a book. Since getting social media, most years I'm reading maybe 50 books in a year. So that's a staggering difference. And I know, it's like, well, there's a clear, I mean, I think there are numerous factors, but certainly social media plays a role. Yeah. So I think that's real for sure.
And I know they build these platforms around bringing us back constantly. So they're good at what they do.
Yeah, I mean, they're reaching deep into our brain stems, similar to the way, addictive substances, work. So we're actually, I think, a lot less in control of our use than I think we believe we are. And I think we should hold these businesses more accountable, but that's just me. I don't want to get up on my soapbox about it, but
yeah. Well, especially recently with the I forget the whistleblower from Facebook and all the different and it's obvious they do all these things, but it's going to be up to all of us to just kind of say that's enough, or just stop using it if we can, or at least taper off the time spent.
Yeah, I don't know if I can imagine that happening. Again, maybe that's the pessimist in me. I'd love to see that, and I think in many ways, I think we probably need to. I just don't know what that looks like. But one can hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I hope so. I think maybe the newer generations will see it as a way to rebel and not use as much social media.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. But I have been wondering, because I started using Twitter earlier, I think January, February this year. And I was resistant to it at first. I didn't want to use it. And then now I've been using it more often. And, obviously good things like this come out of it. But there's another platform called Vero they don't use an algorithm or ads. And I've noticed a huge difference in what the feed looks like there versus Twitter. And I start to wonder if I'm dependent on the algorithm, if I've gotten used to the algorithm so much that it's odd for me just to see the people I follow and that's it, instead of certain things being boosted to encourage a response if I'm just seeing, just everyday posts versus something that's going to incite or going to, um, you know, get a reaction
Hmm.
that is promoted, is brought up, and they make sure that you see it just because they want you to be engaged.
Interesting.
Yeah. Dave asked, maybe I missed it, but can you share what classes you teach, Mike?
So currently I'm TAing for an introduction to short fiction course. I'm not the instructor of record, but in the past, I've been the instructor of record for introduction to literary analysis and English composition. Both of those several times. I at one point taught a communications class. I still don't really understand what that class was about, but I got through it. And I also during my undergrad I taught grammar workshop tutorials. So and I during my master's degree I TA'd for Shakespeare and detective fiction. So a little bit of a few different things, I guess.
Do your students ever read your books and come back and ask you to sign them or anything like that? That'd be kind of fun.
Uh, no, that hasn't happened yet. There was one moment in a class I taught. It's weird when you teach college because these are all adults. So one of them was like, "Hey, my friend said she heard you on a podcast or something," like in the middle of class, and it's awkward. Like, okay, but let's talk about the book. So,
Yeah.
but that's the only moment.
Oh, yeah, that is kind of awkward. Our friend Joshua Marcel is here. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Josh.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thanks so much.
And Jeremy says, I found that Kenneth Branagh's version of Frankenstein was a great film to watch during the pandemic, with Victor Frankenstein trying to convince people how great vaccines were, saving lives every day.
Frankenstein is actually probably my most taught novel. Side note, I love that book.
What is it about Frankenstein that you love so much?
Um, I'm always really interested in the relationship between fear and knowledge, and horror and knowledge. And I think there's some disturbing things that Frankenstein reveals about the creature's education as he becomes more educated. This kind of alien presence finding his way into human society. The more he learns about us, and the more he learns, the scarier things look. I think that's really interesting, and I like it as a novel about parenthood. And I also think it's really cool to think about in terms of genre, because it's, one of the earliest science fiction novels, and a very formative horror novel. So to think about the way it's hybridizing these things is amazing. And Mary Shelley wrote it when she was like 18, which is fucking mind blowing. Like that an 18-year-old could be, could conceive of this book that we're still talking about. This was published in 1818. Like that's that's no small accomplishment.
Juan says, I have a friend who taught a course on dystopian literature right when the pandemic started. Teacher Mandel's Station 11, as everything went to shit, must have been surreal.
No kidding. Yeah, I had a friend teaching a course on pandemic fiction, actually, too, midway through the pandemic. There are probably a lot of academics doing that because they think, what's timely, what's zeitgeisty. So there we have it. Yeah.
It sounds like Dave said did not love Station 11. And Juan.
I love it. Some spirited debate.
Yeah. Good thing Caleb's in there to settle everything.
Yeah, just diffuse the situation.
Yeah. Priscilla's here. Hey, Priscilla. Hi, Mike. How do you discipline yourself to write around the call of social media?
Hey, Priscilla. Thank you. How do I discipline myself to write around the call of social media? I struggle with it. I think in the past, when I've been most productive, it's when I'm very regimented with my writing. I feel like for the past few years, I've been trying to find my way back into something like a routine. The novel I'm writing right now, Cloven Hoof, I wrote a big chunk of it during a pretty brief period in which I would wake up at, I think it was 5 in the morning, and I would write for 2 hours before getting ready for work. And the key thing was I would not look at my phone and I would not open my emails or anything. It was just me, a pot of coffee, and the book. And I think, that's probably key before your head is filled with all the shit that, gets put into our heads throughout the day via our smartphones, via our daily interactions, via all these different stimuli. I think there is something to be said for that early morning loopy clarity. As much as I hate to admit it, because I'm really not a morning person, but I do think there's something to that. So, yeah, but I'm still figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah, it is tough to be distraction free. Jeremy says there's a horror image reaching deep into our brain stems.
Maybe partially invoked in my story at Gorgoyama 2013.
Juan says, I think that's why I love BookTube. It's one of the few internet communities that insists on getting everyone off the internet to go read with mixed results.
Yeah. Totally. Well, yeah, I love what you guys are doing. This is so cool. Like, this is one of the things that keeps me, I don't know, again, to the degree that I am optimistic, which I'm usually not really at all, but I think it's nice to see that this exists. I'm like, well, this is fucking cool. There's a community of people who are excited about books and reading and talking about books and reading. That is amazing. I love that. So respect.
So many great people that, in the community that I've met over the past year or so.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Jay says, but you would all miss me without these platforms a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, Jay. I'm not
I guess we have to keep them.
Yeah, I guess so. Caleb says, Jay, you are the reason I'm addicted to social media.
Oh, he's the devil. I see.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Prince of Darkness. So Jeff says, without social media, I would have never found this crew. And that's the thing is, there's so many great things that come out of it. You just have to, you can go the opposite way. So
for sure. Yeah. I mean, I have made some incredible connections through social media, and I don't want to like understate how much that means to me. Like, I met Jamie Blanks through Twitter, and he has become an incredible friend and collaborator. I dedicated Peel Back and See to Jamie. Like, he's been a major presence in my life. I met Jeffrey Reddick, the creator of Final Destination, also has been like a phenomenally generous and supportive person. Kathy Koja, like, these people are my heroes, and I've getting to meet them. I don't know if I would have had the opportunity without social media. And those are three among many, like SP Muskowski, Robert Dunbar. I could go on and on and on. Farah showed up earlier, like lots of lovely people, all of you, everyone who's attending this. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, fine, I'll admit it. Some good stuff comes out of it. Whatever.
So you've been hopeful already. You're turning.
There we go.
Jay says, I swear I wouldn't do Twitter. Brad Proctor got me on it, and I've made a ton of writing friends, so I guess it's not all bad.
There you go.
Still waiting for Jay's short story collection. Brandon says, I wake up at 5 a.m. to get my best reading in until 7. No distractions, just me and my book.
Yeah, that's cool, Brandy. I've found that too. And actually, that time that I used to use in the morning for writing, I now use for reading, because just the amount of material I have to read for my PhD, there's just not enough time in the day. So my morning, I get up at 6 now, not 5, but I do read for at least an hour before I do anything else. And I love, that's my favorite hour of the day. It's quiet. Sometimes it's still dark out. And just the silence and the, kind of just not making yourself worry about anything, just you and the book. Yeah, she says it's really nice.
Yeah. Are you a fan of ebooks? Do you read a lot of ebooks, or do you try and stick with paperbacks or hardcovers?
Yeah, I like ebooks. I feel like I mostly read paper books. I don't have anything against ebooks. I have a Kindle that I use. It's nice to have like the quick access. Like recently, I was like, I really want to read another Kathy Koja book, and I didn't really know of anywhere locally that I could get one right away. So I just downloaded the Blue Mirror right there. So that's nice, like the instant access. That's cool.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a little too convenient sometimes.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Jeremy says Mike Thorn is in more booktube videos than some booktubers. It's true.
See, this concerns me. I worry. I'm like, are people tired of looking at my face and hearing my voice? I'm tired of it. So, thanks for putting up with so much of me. Yeah, I've been around a lot, I guess.
No, it's great. It's good that I think it's really smart that you are involved in the community and you foster relationships with creators and readers, because it's great to get to know you and your perspectives and your process and your experiences, and it makes everyone feel closer to you and
Oh, good.
can relate to your work. So I think that's a really smart thing to do. I wish more authors would do that, but I know some aren't comfortable doing that kind of thing, so it's understandable. Jay says I have to go do paper cuts. I'll watch the rest later, but I'll have a fun
Thanks for
time.
tuning in. Yeah, thank you.
Juan says I do all my reading at night, but I pretty much do everything at night with those precious random spurts of motivation.
Oh, that's interesting. Those nighttime creative organisms are fascinating to me, and I do know some.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know. I don't get it. By the end of the day, I am just useless. I'm tired. I feel like I need a blood transfusion. I'm like, maybe I can have a shower. Chances are I'm too tired to even do that. Like I can't. I've probably done some writing at night, but very rarely. It has to be morning for the most part for me. So that's interesting.
What is your ideal writing environment?
Um, I'm not too fussy. I like. I think it's nice being around books. So if I want to like pull something out and for reference, I can do that. So I have an office now. This is not something I've ever had in the past. That's really cool. So the fact that it's like a space that I can devote to writing is good. I actually in the past really liked going to cafes to write because I think there's a cognitive shift that happens when you switch locations. But again, due to the pandemic, there's just not a thing I do anymore. I miss that a lot because I think, yeah, in a way, cafes were the best for me. And I would have headphones on, play some music, and because you're telling yourself, I have come here to write. You're kind of telling your brain and your body that, and I think it helps get the juices flowing. So, yeah.
Kev says I'm glad I'm not the only one trying to turn my life around at 3 a.m.
I mean, my brain is trying to turn my life around at 3 a.m. mostly by sending me anxious signals, but that's not a good thing. I can't. I don't know.
Jerry says joining us on BookTube makes an author so much more approachable, and I'm far more likely to find a connection to their writing when I felt part of the conversation.
Oh, cool. Well, that's good to hear. I mean, and I love doing these things. Like I said, it's like I love that I'm able to talk to like fans of this stuff and people who maybe read my work and other writers, and that is truly one of the best things about this dark, murky thing we call the internet. So, yeah.
Yeah. There are some positives.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. With fall coming up, do you have a favorite season, or do your moods or writing styles or the kind of entertainment you enjoy change through the seasons?
Yeah. Fall is my absolute favorite for sure. October is my favorite month. So every October, I try to make a point, no matter how busy I am, I have to watch at least 31 horror films. I do end up watching short films sometimes, but I've pretty much met my goal this time around. So I did a lot of rewatching this year because with like lots of podcast interviews and stuff, because I tend to run my mouth off about movies a lot. I have like movie podcasts saying, "Hey, do you want to come talk about movies?" So I had some people ask me if I wanted to do an episode about Rob Zombie. So I rewatched some Rob Zombie movies. I was invited to do this one called Force 5, where he asked me to pick my favorite horror movie from 5 different subgenres. So I rewatched a lot, but that can be fun too. And I had a friend come visit who was like, "I can't watch scary movies alone. Can you watch like The Exorcist with me and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with me?" So I did, and that was fun. And it's fun seeing her reaction to those movies. So yeah.
And Caleb says, Mike, we will never be tired of you. You still need to go on Juan's channel.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you. I would love to go on Juan's channel. That would be amazing.
Caleb is right, Juan. Why are you not interviewing Mike? He said he always says yes.
That's right.
That'll be what I would definitely want to see.
Send me a message. Send me an email. I'd be happy to.
Definitely. And with your Rob Zombie podcast that you discussed, Rob Zombie movies, which movies did you rewatch for that?
So they told me they specifically wanted to look at House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects, and The Lords of Salem. So we just did those 3. And we touched on like his Halloween films and his later stuff, but that was like the 3 we really dug into, which was cool. I've spent a lot of time with Rob Zombie's movies, so it was good to have the opportunity to blabber on about them a bit. That was cool.
What are your thoughts on Lords of Salem? That's the one I haven't seen yet.
I'm actually wearing a Lords of Salem shirt. Funny. Yeah, it's my favorite actually. And it's probably my favorite horror film of the 2010s. One of my favorite horror films of like the past 20, 30 years. I think it's one of the better genre studies of addiction and of the way like lineages and pasts can haunt someone and can plague someone and house themselves in the body and the mind. It's very different from his other work too. It's like it's still very much a Rob Zombie movie, so it has his sensibility all over it. But he was drawing on things like Rosemary's Baby and The Shining, and even some Italian horror from the 70s. So it has a different vibe. But yeah, I love it. Highly recommend Lords of Salem.
You have to watch that. And Juan says, "Fuck it, let's make it happen."
I would love that. Yeah, happy to do it anytime. Just say the word.
And Jeremy always gives me, well, it doesn't always, but he likes to give me grief about t-shirt stuff. So nice t-shirt question. And Jeff says, I initially thought it was a He-Man t-shirt since I could only see the top. Yeah,
all right. I will reveal it in full.
Yeah.
There we go. Lords of Salem. Proof.
And Stevenson says it had some frightening imagery, I thought, very jarring.
Yeah. Oh, it really does. There's some... It's very surreal too. And it's interesting because Rob Zombie originally had a kind of more conventional plot in mind and a bigger scope too. But he was working on, I think, a 22-day schedule, very limited budget. The budget is like just over $1 million. So it ends up becoming this kind of weird, slippery, hallucinatory thing because he had to cut a lot. But there's also a novel version he co-wrote with someone else. So that's kind of cool to read too. Yeah, that's Juan just brought up Brian. So yeah, he co-wrote a novelization with Brian Evenson. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It's cool to see, again, like the scope of Zombie's original vision for it.
Is there a extended cut or director's cut of Lords of Salem that you know?
No, I listened to his commentary recently, and I've listened to him talk about it a lot, and it sounds like basically the schedule was so tight that there wasn't really a lot of extra stuff they could even shoot. So I think it's pretty much is what it is. I am, however, a little bit pissed at Rob Zombie because he promised us a director's cut of 31 and we never got it. So Rob Zombie, you are a hero of mine. I know you're listening to this. Please give me the director's cut of 31.
Yes, he's a regular. So yeah, I was about to ask you about 31, what your thoughts were on it, because I wasn't really quite sure what to expect, but I really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was great.
I did too. Yeah. It's very fucked up and very disturbing too. I actually think it's in a way like one of the better movies about Trump's America, just like lower class warfare that's being observed by the aristocratic elite for their amusement, and you don't really they're not really given much reason beyond base level amusement. And Richard Brake in that is so fucking good, so good. Yeah,
Yeah, he really goes for it in that movie. You could tell he was really. I mean, he just yeah,
incredible. Yeah,
yeah,
incredible performance.
very convincing.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's a savage movie.
I thought Sherry Moon was one of her better performances too in that movie.
Definitely. Yeah. Lords of Salem too. She's phenomenal in that as someone just like grappling with these demons of addiction and traumatic past and stuff like that. I think those are my two favorite performances of hers, but she's great. I love Sherry Moon Zombie.
What were your thoughts on zombies Halloween movies?
I love them. I think they are to their um, to their benefit. They are very much their own thing. I think
Mhm.
it's obvious that Rob Zombie reveres the original film and respects it, and I think his way of paying respect, and in a sense, is by going his own direction because I think he knew he couldn't replicate what Carpenter had done. And I like how the second film just sort of like uh, dives into the psychic territory of the characters. It's filled with dreamy imagery, and it kind of delves into the unconscious of Michael Myers, which is a cool entry into his relationship with his sister. Yeah, I love them. I don't know. I think they're still pretty divisive, right? Like not everybody.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have the camp who loves the old movies, and I think no matter what you do, they'll always love those older movies, and so it's a no-win situation for some of those people.
Yeah, yeah, I love them.
Yeah, but I like you mentioned, I think it's great that he did his own thing with it, and he didn't try to recreate the original movies, and he just did his own thing with it, which is I'm sure that's a little nerve-wracking to just to take something like those movies and do have your own vision for it without feel like you're doing a disservice to the originals. So that's got to be tough.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's an impossible position to be in because people say, well, you have to pay tribute to the original, but yeah, if you just like directly remake the original, as Gus Van Sant made that kind of experimental film Psycho, where he remade it basically shot for shot in color. There are some differences, and people despise that film. I think it's an interesting experiment. But then, yeah, if you go too far, they say, well, why did you even call it Halloween? So you can't win, as you say.
Yeah. Juan says my favorite Rob Zombie is Halloween. My favorite Trump era film, however, is Rambo: Last Blood.
I love First Blood, and I like the Rambo movies, but I haven't seen Last Blood yet. I've been meaning to, so I will have to check that out.
Mhm.
Yeah, First Blood is a classic. Good movie.
Yeah. Caleb says, I think I heard someone say Zombies Halloween is like Halloween 3, great horror film, but not really a Halloween film.
Hmm. Yeah, I could see that. And I guess I'm not like, I don't know, going into it, I didn't have expectations that it needed to do any specific things. I feel like if you just watch it on its own terms,
Mhm.
it's, there's a lot to enjoy there. I think especially the second film, which is very much a Rob Zombie movie and a very adventurous Rob Zombie movie. Yeah, and Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, that movie rules.
Hmm.
And it, unfortunately, because it didn't adhere to this Michael Myers stock and slash formula, it got kind of shut out by a lot of people. But it's a great movie.
Yeah, I think fandoms are a strange thing. I think there's, especially now with, uh, again, with social media, because now these people can gather and they can feed off of each other. So I do think it's interesting how fandoms have become so negative, or in some cases, how
Mhm.
they're just really angry whenever they feel like their uh, movies or whatever it may be is disrespected, or if someone doesn't enjoy them, then they have feel this need to attack. Where do you think
Mhm.
that might come from? That strange rabid anger over entertainment?
I think it has to do with like the way social media encourages us to think about ourselves as brands or aligning with brands, which I think is very dangerous, and feeds into like kind of grotesquely capitalist logic that I find scary. But I think that's part of it, like this brand allegiance thing. Even thinking about art in that way freaks me out. And I think as a result, we do see a cinema landscape that foregrounds like corporate authorship over individual authorship. I also don't like that. So I used to write a lot about Star Wars. I have been very outspoken about the fact that I think the prequels are great films and very undervalued. And I stopped talking about Star Wars and writing about Star Wars altogether because the vitriol and I was just like, I don't fucking need that. Like, I'm just writing criticism. You don't have to, make these awful assumptions about me as a human being because I have a different opinion from. So I found especially that group was just like unbelievably toxic. And so I was like, I'm out. I'm not talking about Star Wars ever again. I will. So that's that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. This tribal negative. It's just really weird. If you criticize, like you said, Star Wars or certain types of movies, and they feel the need to come after you and shut you down.
Really or like strange. Marvel movies, it's like, really, you have to like defend this fucking corporate juggernaut. Like, I think Disney Marvel will be okay. Like, I don't get it. So anyway, sorry.
I don't either, and don't get me started on Marvel movies.
Oh God, yeah. No, me neither. Oh boy.
I can't stay awake through many of them. So.
Oh, I know, they're awful movies.
But I'm not alone.
No, I liked, again, before Disney bought Marvel, I think there were some good films. Like, I thought the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies were actually good films.
Yeah.
I actually think the Ang Lee Hulk movie is really interesting. But yeah, I've caught the odd one. I'm like, yeah, I want to go see a fun comic book movie. And then it's just like this drudgery. I'm just like, what is this? Like, they're incoherent. They all look like they're shot in a Walgreens parking lot now. Like, I'm like, anyway, sorry. That's a whole other thing.
I'm just glad I'm not alone, because I wonder sometimes, am I the only one who doesn't like this crap?
No, it's not. It's not just you.
Okay, good. Jeff says, I think anger over media is a good sign. It means that person is nearly out of real problems.
There you go.
Yeah. Silver lining.
Yeah. No disrespect to fans of the Marvel movies, by the way. I'm just running off a little bit.
Yeah, no, if and that's the thing is, if people love them, and obviously many people love the Marvel movies, and that's great, and I hope I hope they watch it day and night, and they have fun, but I just don't care for them. So any of that. Well, there are a couple that were okay, but most of them I can't.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother
No, I know.
I can talk for hours about that. Juan says Last Blood is not a good movie. It's actually terrible, but it's fascinating symptom of its time. Highly recommended.
Interesting. Okay. Well, duly noted. I will have to check it out. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I remember being intrigued by it. I think Stallone is like an interesting, cultural figure, and some of his work is great. Not all of it is great by any means, but I was like, a new Rambo movie right now. Like, what would that be like? And I haven't checked it out yet. So,
and Juan mentioning that it's not a good movie, but it's highly recommended is, I hear a lot of people say you have to watch this movie. It's so bad you have to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you watch movies when you know it's going to be bad?
Less and less as I don't know, with time. Like, I just I don't have time to watch something. Like, I usually, if I go into a movie, I'm like, I at least I have some modicum of expectation that I might enjoy it. I'm trying to think of, I guess one exception might be like if I watch a movie on an airplane, I'll put on a movie that I have very low expectations. Like last time I flew an airplane, I watched Joker because I was like, this is going to be stupid. And actually, it was not as bad as I expected. I went in with very low expectations, and I thought there were a few interesting things about it. I don't think warranted the strong reactions on either end of the spectrum. I think it's just kind of a whatever movie, but I didn't entirely hate it, so that's good. Yeah.
So when Caleb says, Mike, in the spirit of Halloween, Jason, Michael, Freddy, or Leatherface?
Oh man.
Hmm.
Jason, Michael, Freddy, or Leatherface. Well, I love them all. They all have a corner somewhere in my dark heart. Well, you know what? I'll just have to pick my favorite movie out of the first. So, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Texas Chainsaw Massacre to me is one of the greatest American films ever made. I love the way Leatherface is depicted in that film. There's actually kind of a weird pathos to Leatherface because he's kind of picked on by his family, and he's like, they sort of use him in a way. He also, brutally murders several people and puts them in a freezer. But so yeah, I'll go with Leatherface. I like Freddy a lot too, though. Those are probably my two favorites. And Robert Englund as Freddy, legendary. So yeah.
And you mentioned you like to watch 31 horror movies in October. Which other movies did you rewatch?
I rewatched Exorcist and Exorcist 2. I watched two early 1930s films by a director named Victor Halperin. He did White Zombie with Bela Lugosi, and he did a lesser known film the next year called Supernatural, which I love. I rewatched Revenge of the Creature, which is the sequel to Creature from the Black Lagoon. I think it's really often overlooked and super interesting movie. Those Rob Zombie ones. What else have I rewatched? I rewatched The Conjuring 2 because I hadn't seen The Conjuring 3, so I wanted to refresh myself on that. I rewatched Black Roses, which is a lot of fun if people want something that captures the spirit of the 80s heavy metal horror overlap. That movie is a great time, featuring a lot of good songs by a band called Lizzie Borden. So yeah, that's a good one.
That band does sound familiar, Lizzie Borden.
Yeah, they're sort of like a glam metal band, but definitely on the better end of the spectrum, because I think glam metal is largely atrocious shit. But Lizzie Borden is pretty good, actually.
Well, we're agreeing a lot tonight. Yeah, glam is not good.
A couple like gems in there, but like the first couple Motley Crue albums I think are pretty good. Wasp, but most of it is just awful. So yeah,
99.8% of it is just.
I think so.
Yeah, not a fan. Juan says Leatherface for me too. Poor guy. He's just trying to keep the nuclear family together, even without female family members. He's trying to make things work.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there's this kind of pathos to him when he gets in trouble for breaking the door, but again, he's just trying to keep things together. Yeah, that movie's really darkly funny, as distressing and horrifying as it is. There's some humor in it for sure.
Yeah. Caleb says, "What about you? What? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, cool. What is your favorite? Who's your favorite boogeyman?" That's a good question. From the list, from Jason, Michael, Freddy, or Leatherface. Probably Freddy, just because I think he's the scariest. When I was younger, he scared the Jesus out of me. But you can't really go wrong with any of them.
No, yeah, that's true.
But I think Freddy was my 10-year-old self was afraid of it because you had no control over, and you were afraid to sleep. So when you're most vulnerable is when you're sleeping. So that's what made him terrifying, is you have to sleep.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that movie's a stroke of genius, total lightning in a bottle. And I revisited that one a lot, and it's just like it always holds up. It's brilliant. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Dave says, just started the Conjuring series for the first time. Watched The Conjuring and Annabelle this week, and The Conjuring 2 is tonight.
Oh, cool. Nice. Yeah, I like James Wan a lot actually. I feel like I was kind of on the fence about him for a while because I feel like his films are so much about the mechanics of designing scare sequences in a way. But I've come to appreciate that about him. I feel like he makes some of the best contemporary horror films about horror films. Like they're sort of just about the craft of designing scare sequences, of building atmosphere and things like that. And The Conjuring is just like a really effective haunted house movie. Like it works. So, and his new one, Malignant, I had a lot of fun with too. I thought it was, you know, I had a good time with it.
Speaking of divisiveness, I've heard, because I was really excited to watch that, and then I heard all this. It was either I loved it or I hated it. It was nothing in the middle. Those are usually the movies I like. So
Yeah, me too. Me
yeah,
too. Yeah, no, I really liked it. I think you know, it's James Wan in his more like bonkers mode. So I would say his movie Dead Silence is a little bit like that. Even but he even has moments like that in like Insidious with the devil, uh, the demonic figure like sharpening his fingernails while playing that record. Like
yeah.
he often has that kind of surreal, borderline goofy imagery. And Malignant has a lot of that sort of thing. So,
What were your thoughts on the Insidious series? What did you like those movies?
I to varying degrees. I think the first one especially is really really good.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. How about you? Did you like them?
Really liked the first one. I thought what they did with the second one was okay. I think there was some there were some story aspects I didn't really care for,
Hmm.
and then after that, it wasn't very good. There was some really weird, didn't need to be made movies after that. So
Yeah. I guess the most recent one, it's Saving Grace, was that Lynn Shay was the lead, and
mhm.
she's awesome. But yeah, no, I agree. And James Wan stopped directing them after the second one too. So
Yeah, yeah, I did. I really like. I think who's the director? He's from the one tree. He did the Invisible Man. I forget his
Lee
name.
One L, yeah,
One L. Yeah, I think the Invisible Man is really good too.
yeah, they're an interesting team.
Mhm.
It's cool to see like the way they kind of developed together their styles in tandem with each other.
Yeah, but I did the Conjuring universe. I think it was interesting. I think the first Annabelle was kind of a mess, but I thought Creation was okay. I think it was able to save some of the mistakes they made in the first one.
What happens in Creation again? If there are a few
Uh,
Annabelle movies, right? I'm trying to remember which.
yeah, it's the origin story of the Annabelle doll.
Okay,
When the couple, they invite the orphanage, the kids from the orphanage, to come and live with them because they lost their daughter, and then that ends up being uh, the doll used the loss of their daughter as a way to convince them to invite it in, and then it turned into a whole
right.
mess.
It's all it, and it plays almost like a haunted house movie a little bit, if I recall.
Yeah,
I like that one. Yeah, I think I like that one.
yeah, and so that Annabelle movie, and there was the other Conjuring movie that came out a few months back. Did you see that one? The Devil Made Me Do It.
Yeah, without James Wan at the helm, and you could tell.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, it was whatever, I guess.
yeah.
What did you think?
I didn't care for it. I think
Yeah.
they're trying to make the Warrens into these like superheroes instead of focusing on the stories, and they tried to turn the Warrens into these like these heroes who are falling off cliffs, and it's just kind of silly,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
missed opportunity.
Yeah. I could feel the absence of James Wan for sure.
Yeah, Freddy, always Freddy.
Respect. I love Freddie. I love Freddie.
Hmm. And Dave says I live in Connecticut, so it's doubly awesome. And yeah, I heard the third Annabelle movie was the first Annabelle flick that got it right. Yeah,
Was that Creation?
I think Creation's the second one, if I'm not mistaken, but I might be wrong. the first Annabelle movie is just a thing called Annabelle, and then there's creations after that. I believe they've made quite a few. They've yeah, the Conjuring universe was a good idea, but was a yeah, like the Nun was
Yeah.
bad. Oh, Patrick Wilson playing an acoustic Elvis song. Conjuring 2 was where I tapped out.
It either works for you or it doesn't. It's actually really funny. My friend who was staying, she cried during that scene, I think, and during a scene in Conjuring 3. So she's like, wow, I cried at 2 of the Conjuring movies, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you go with it or you don't. I can see why that might be.
Yeah.
Might not work for everybody.
Yeah, it's a hit or miss kind of thing. Yeah, that was kind of strange in the middle of a horror movie.
Yeah.
And I think last time we talked a little bit about, or maybe it was on Twitter that you had mentioned Alan Moore's Neonomicon and Providence comic books. Have you read those?
Not me. Must have been a different
okay.
Mike Thorn. Maybe Mike Thrawn. My
your evil twin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought about it. I thought we had chatted about, but maybe I'm wrong. So Jeff Lane says, Witchboard got me as a kid. I wonder if it would hold up today.
I watched that one within the past year or so on VHS, actually. And I don't know. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil Jeff's relationship to that movie. Report back, Jeff.
Yeah, let us know what you think, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conjuring 2 is basically a sentimental Christmas movie, is actually what I noticed this time around. So that Elvis singing scene, I was like, well, within the context of what James Wan is doing with this, it sort of makes sense. It's a very sentimental movie, and it does have more of a kind of Christmassy spirit to it than Autumn, I guess. So
he says, my childhood image will be ruined.
Well, I hope it holds up for you. I actually don't remember a lot about it. So
speaking of Christmas movies, let's try and settle a debate that people have been having for a long time. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Of course.
Oh.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I mean, if you don't want it to be, that's fine. You don't have to call it that. That's okay. Yeah. For me, I mean, it's set on Christmas. It's Eyes Wide Shut is a Christmas movie. Why not?
Oh, yeah. Why
The
not?
Conjuring 2 is a Christmas movie. I'm adding it to the list. If you don't like it, don't add it to your list.
Yeah. And, Dave says, Krampus. Enough said.
I didn't catch Krampus, but...
And we are watching a movie called Apostle on Netflix. Have you seen that? The Netflix movie? Oh, okay. We're going to be discussing that next week. I was going to ask you what your thoughts were on it.
Is it any good? Is it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
We chose it kind of randomly on Netflix, something that's accessible for, we try and pick something on a streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more accessible. And it looked interesting. It had some pretty decent reviews. So
okay.
Let's see what you thought about it. So, but yeah, we'll go in blind.
Yeah, I feel like I'm actually a little bit behind with like recent horror releases. I did just catch Halloween Kills. I missed the new Candyman. I don't even know if that's still in theaters. I don't know. It's like, again, I feel like due to the pandemic, just keeping up with recent movies is somehow harder. Like I find I'm kind of going back more. I just feel more drawn to older movies recently too. I saw the new Ridley Scott movie, The Last Duel, because I knew I didn't want to miss that on the big screen. So, but it's I feel like it's less often now that I'll watch something recent.
What were your thoughts on The Last Duel? Like, because I hear great things about it.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's really complex, and it's a great movie about story. Yeah, like how story functions, how point of view shifts what a story does, what stories mean culturally. There's a lot of really cool stuff, and it's just a Ridley Scott epic, so it has all the pleasures that you get out of that, but it's also kind of unpleasant. Like it's dark. It's like he's he's reinterpreting a lot of, I think, the motifs and tropes that have been kind of threading throughout his career. Although I think Ridley Scott is also just generally smarter than he's given credit for. So it's good shit.
Juan says it's about a family coming back together, a common Christmas motif.
Just like Child's Play. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff says Die Hard equals Christmas. Yippee-ki-yay and Happy New Year.
Very good.
Dune was a good big screen movie. I wonder if it would hit me the same on a TV screen.
I have heard that my screenwriting instructor was urging all of us to go see Dune. And for whatever reason, I've been reluctant because I'm like, yeah, but I haven't read the book, which doesn't make sense because I watched the David Lynch movie without reading the book. So maybe I should just go.
Which David Lynch movie?
David Lynch did Dune in the 80s.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So, and that's a weird movie.
Yeah, that's the one with Sting in it, right?
Is Sting in it? I'm trying to remember. Brad Dourif is in it with some incredible eyebrows. That's what I remember more than anything. So
you can't beat incredible eyebrows.
No.
Yeah. Juan says I have noticed there's a lot more horror movies set on Christmas than Halloween, which is hilarious.
That is interesting. Yeah. I guess it could be that thing about like the function of horror kind of infecting the most comforting things for us or getting us at our most vulnerable. It's like, you know, when a monster shows up on Halloween, you're like, yeah, okay, really? Like I knew this was Christmas though. That's not right.
Yeah. Okay, so Juan says yes, Sting is in it.
Thank you. I couldn't remember for some reason. Yeah, Kyle MacLachlan. That's right. Yeah.
Same dilemma. I try to hurry up and read Dune before it disappears off HBO Max.
Mm.
Yeah, that wasn't even a try. Yeah.
No, there's no way I'll read it in time. So it's a matter of like deciding, do I want to see it in theaters or not? And I probably should see it in theaters.
I heard it's a great. I heard it's really great on IMAX, but
I have to. Yeah. Did you saw it?
Yeah, we watched it here. It was okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually hit and miss on Villeneuve. I think he's obviously a talented filmmaker. I don't know. I don't even know if I've really connected to any of his films. I thought the movie Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal was kind of interesting, but
yeah, I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, it was cool.
The visuals and the just really great visuals in Dune. I really loved the presentation. Just the story was a little dry. I don't know, and I don't want to say too much, but the end had me scratching my head a little bit. But if you read the book, I'm sure it makes a lot more sense. So I don't want to be that guy who's complaining that it doesn't make sense when I haven't read the book.
I haven't seen his Blade Runner, but I do want to see that.
Yeah, I've heard great things about that too.
Me too.
But I'm a fan of Villeneuve, so.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Take Steve's Dune review with a grain of salt. He doesn't like Star Wars. I'm not the biggest fan of Star Wars. Not a huge fan.
And you know what? That's okay. That doesn't mean that you deserve to be villainized and vilified and torn to shreds for having the wrong Star Wars opinion. That's fine. That's fine.
We can all get along.
We can all get along. It's okay. We can all coexist.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of. I don't like Marvel movies. I'm not a huge fan of Star Wars, although I do see why people like it.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. Well, Mike, I want to thank you. I feel so honored that you came by to celebrate your publication day with me. That's great because you could have gone anywhere and done it with anyone. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on. Well, Juan, sorry, I just saw Juan has never watched any Star Wars films. Well, maybe keep it that way, actually. Maybe that's just a world better left unexplored at this point. It has been tainted by the tentacles of Disney. So, yeah, no, seriously, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and asked questions. That's really cool and nice. So appreciate it.
I hope it was a memorable, when you look back, when your next book releases, you look back and say, oh, that was a fun time with Peel Back and See. So hope it was a good time.
It was a great time. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's see. And there's still, Juan is unhealthily biased against sci-fi.
Okay. Okay. I mean, Star Wars is more like sword and sorcery type stuff originally. It's,
Yeah.
than more than sci-fi.
A little more fantasy. Yeah. I think fantasy,
Yeah.
sci-fi. Great conversation. Happy publication day. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This was amazing. Thank you, Mike and Steve. Yeah, I really want to see. I hope you and Juan are able to connect because I really would love to see the two of you or listen to the two of you have a conversation. I think that'd be great.
I would love that. Anytime, Juan.
Yeah. Jeremy says yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Juan says, Dave, stop slandering me. You're not the one that I hated.
Oh man, there's some
Yeah.
some drama going on.
Yeah. Dave says, thanks so much. Great job. Thanks, Mike. Thanks so much for coming tonight. And thanks again for the incredible book. Congrats.
Thank you likewise. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone has a great Friday evening, what's left of it, depending on what time zone you're in. So thanks for coming by to chat. And Jeff says, great chat and congratulations, Mike.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
So thanks everyone for coming by and asking questions and participating. It's been a great time, and want to say thanks again to Mike for spending publication day with me. It's an honor, so I really appreciate it.
Likewise, man. Great time.
Mike, you rock.
Back at you, Caleb. Thank you.
So have a good night, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Go back and go read, peel back and see, and leave reviews on Amazon, Goodreads, and where else?
Yeah, Amazon, Goodreads. Those are good. Tell your friends, tell your family, spread the pessimism, disturb your grandmother. Yeah.
Darius says, keep looking after yourself, Mike.
Thank you. Back at you. Everybody, keep looking after yourselves. These are scary times. Be nice to each other. Be nice to yourselves.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. So thanks again, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Peace.